think it's useful to know the musical alphabet, and the guitar is great for illustrating it. Let's just kind of get into it, and I think you're going to see that it's pretty easy to understand and very useful. So if you divide a string in half, the 12th fret is the midpoint of a string. So if we have one frequency going with the open E string, the 12th fret, 6th string, is that note doubled. So this note is twice the frequency of this note. Your guitar probably has some kind of special fret marking on the 12th fret, and that's because of this. This is a universal human concept. Apparently, as you travel around the world, everywhere you go, humans hear a note that is twice the frequency of another note as the same note. So these two notes blend for us. If we had two guitars here and I was playing this and they were playing this, those two notes would blend perfectly, really. Now, the reason that's important is because we essentially have arrived back at our starting point when we get to the 12th fret. We have an E note here, and when we get to the 12th fret, we have another E. It's a higher pitched E, but it's another E. So anything that happens past the 12th fret is not going to be new in terms of, we're not going to find any new notes on this string, because we're going to just simply hear higher pitched versions of notes we already played in the first 12 frets. And this concept is called the octave. This concept of the same note repeating. And if we kept going, this note would double, and then we would have another E and another E and another E for the whole range of human hearing. What we want to do is look at the divisions of the octave. Different musical cultures take that octave and divide it up in different ways. The guitar is demonstrating that in the musical system that the guitar was built to, the octave is divided up into 12 equal units. So these 12 frets are the equal units that the octave is divided up into. So that brings us to the musical alphabet, and there's really not that much you need to memorize here. Start with the number 12. We're talking about 12 units, and so in other words, there are only 12 unique notes that we're ever talking about in music. And they're named using a group of 7 letter names. We start on A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. 7 letter names. We never get to H. We just start over on A. The next thing to know is that there is a space between each of those letter names. So in other words, you would skip a fret between each letter name, except for E and F and B and C, and that's something you just need to memorize. So in other words, whenever we run into a B note, this happens to be a B note, the next note is always going to be C. There's not going to be any space between them. They're going to be on frets right next to each other. Whenever we reach an E note, so up here on the 12th fret is an E, the next note is always going to be F. All the other notes are separated by a fret. So let's take a look at how that's going to break down, starting at the first fret down here, actually starting with the open string. Here's an E. Now we know that E and F are always right next to each other, so the first fret's going to be an F. Then we would skip a fret, so the 3rd fret is a G, and then we would skip a fret to A on the 5th fret. Then we would skip a fret to B on the 7th fret. Now B and C are always right next to each other, so the 8th fret is C. Then we would skip a fret to get to D on the 10th fret, skip a fret to get to E on the 12th fret. I recommend doing this on all 6 strings. I'll do it on the A string just so you get the hang of it. If you do it right, then when you get to the 12th fret, you should be on the same note that you started with. So in other words, the 5th string is an A. We would skip a fret, so we go to the 2nd fret. Okay, now this is a B note. B and C are always right next to each other, so the 3rd fret is going to be C. Then we skip a fret to D on the 5th fret, skip a fret to E on the 7th fret. E and F are always right next to each other, so the 8th fret's going to be F, right? Skip a fret to the 10th fret, G, skip a fret to the 12th fret, and A. And we did it right, because we started on an open A string and we ended up on an A on the 12th fret. So spend some time and do that up and down every string. It's going to be worth your while. There's really only one other thing to worry about, which is how do we name the other notes? And what you do is you name them in reference to these letter names. And that's where the sharps and flats come in. So sharp means just above, and flat means just below. In the case of the guitar, just above means 1 fret above, just below means 1 fret below. So in other words, let's go back to the 6th string. We got an E here, and then we know that F is the next note, so the first fret is an F. Now, the next letter name is G on the 3rd fret. We have a note in between. So it's just above F. So we're going to call it F sharp. G. Just above G is G sharp. Just above A, or rather just above G sharp is A. Then just above A is A sharp. Just above A sharp, we have B. Now B and C are always right next to each other. C is on the 8th fret. Then just above C is C sharp, D, D sharp, E. Well, where do the flats come in? Well, this is the weird part. The flats are the exact same notes as the sharps. Those notes have 2 names. Technically, when you're going up in a melody, you would call them sharp notes, and when you're going down in a melody, you would call them flat notes. I wouldn't get too hung up on it. I would say you can call them either note. When you learn more about key signatures and what sharps and flats are in a key, then you can, we can come back, we can revisit this idea. But right now, we're just trying to learn the musical alphabet. So we're not going to worry too much about calling it a sharp or a flat. This note is E on the 12th fret. Just below it is E flat, even though we also just called it D sharp. Okay? Then D on the 10th fret. Right below D is D flat, also known as C sharp. Right below that is C. Now C and B are always right next to each other, so the next fret, 7th fret, is B. Right below B is B flat. Right below B flat is A flat, G, G flat, F, E. Okay? That's really all you need to know about the musical alphabet. That's going to allow you to find any note on the guitar with a little bit of work. If you have to start all the way down at the open string and work your way up, you can do that. Keep in mind that if you're trying to find a note way up here, say I'm on the 9th fret of the 5th string, I want to know what note that is. Well, you don't have to go all the way down here. You can keep in mind that if you know that this is an open A string, then the 12th fret is A as well, because that's the octave, and you can work your way backwards. A flat, G, G flat. All right, so that note right there on the 9th fret, 5th string is a G flat, also known as an F sharp. So just keep those things in mind. Essentially, 7 letter names, 12 notes, sharps and flats, B and C, E and F, always right next to each other. The same note can be either called a sharp or a flat. It's going to have a different letter name, so it can be a C sharp or a D flat, in other words. It's just above C and just below D. Hopefully that all makes sense, and we're going to need it for the next video where we're going to talk about the major scale a little bit.